Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, channel for film reviews, discussions, and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined once again with my co-host Tate and Niawa, and welcome to another episode of Film Club. How Film Club works is, at the end of our main show each week, we take it in turns, nominating a film that vaguely ties in with whatever we reviewed. This week we did Everest, and it was my turn to pick, so the link I went was with Jake Gyllenhaal, and I chose a film from last year that I hadn't seen. I heard really good things about it. It was also getting a bit of Oscar buzz as well, I think, around the time. So on today's show, we'll be reviewing the 2014 neo-noir crime thriller film Nightcrawler, directed and written by Dan Gilroy. And as I said, I picked this movie purely based just on the Jake Gyllenhaal link. No other links, no other intricate, well
Are you
thought out
sure?
links.
Are you 100% sure that Nightcrawler is not just Everest, just slightly different?
Well, you
Or...
know what? The characters are very similar from what we see of Jake
Yeah,
Gyllenhaal at the
true.
start.
And the intensity is probably quite similar as well. So,
Oh, definitely, and we're gonna definitely talk a lot more on that now. So let's get into our review for Nightcrawler. So, as always, we'll start with a spoiler free and move into spoilers later on. We don't usually do that for Film Club. A lot of the films we usually pick are older ones, so I always think, if you
yeah,
haven't
this
seen
one's
the
quite
film.
new, so
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I always think if you haven't seen the film by now, then what you're playing at, you deserve to be spoiled. But with a film like this, I think that I mean, I'll get into this in a bit, but I went into this movie completely cold. I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal was playing like a serial killer or something. I was aware of the intensity that everyone talked about, but I didn't realise that the film was quite like this. So I definitely recommend people seeing this. I would almost suggest going into this movie cold without knowing anything, because that's sort of how I
Yeah.
went into this movie, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it that way. But as I said, when we get to spoilers later on in the show, we'll let you know when that's coming around. So thoughts before going in. I mean, as I said, like this came
You were in
out
the dark,
around.
yeah.
Yeah, I was completely in the dark on this. This came out around the Oscar sort of time. It got caught up all with those films, and as is always the case with the Oscar season, there is just such an onslaught of films. It's very difficult to sort of keep on top of them all. I think I'll be doing a better job with that this year, especially now that the channel's up and running.
Yeah,
And
don't worry.
we'll,
I'll make sure you're keeping on that because
oh,
I am a huge fan of Oscar season and I'll be keeping on top of it, definitely.
definitely, and it'd even be cool to do like a live stream or something during the Oscars if we ever get round to that. But yeah, around this time, so I was struggling to keep up with everything, and this was just one that went completely under the radar. It was always one I was aware of that I wanted to go and see at some point, and as luck would have it, we got to do it for this one. So really, I knew absolutely nothing apart from that Jake Gyllenhaal was snubbed for the Oscar, and we'll go into that much later on as well. Because after seeing the film now, I completely agree that he deserved a nomination for it. So I knew nothing, and the plot for anyone watching who hasn't seen it and is curious about it is Jake Gyllenhaal basically plays a freelance media. He's like just a camera guy, isn't he? He just goes around to
Yeah.
accidents or police incidents and films them. Tries to sell the footage to various news sites, news anchorage to get himself a bit of cash and a bit of notoriety. Um, but you really sort of delve into his dark side. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal plays a complete sociopath in this movie, and it's incredible to watch. So I guess, I mean, you've already seen this film before I did, and
Yeah.
you were sort of alluding to in our last show what was to come and what I was to expect. So can you cast your mind back and remember what your thoughts were before seeing the film?
100%. Yeah, I can cast my mind back very easily. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't read any of the reviews beforehand. I was bored one week and thought, "What's in the cinema? I'll go have a look." And it was Oscar season, so I was given a lot of choice. I thought, "Do you know what? I've had it with all this normal Oscar period drama,
Mm.
this kind of lovey-dovey, sappy. Oh, we got to make you feel guilty and stuff like that." BS. I thought, I'm gonna watch a thriller. I could see that Nightcrawler, it was being advertised at the time as a thriller. I thought, you know what? Let's see whether this is a good thriller or not. I'll try and review it on my own channel. Watched it, completely loved it. Went home, completely forgot about it. And then when it came back out on DVD, I was walking around town and was like, yeah, I can remember enjoying that film. Watched it again, and I'm not sure what I missed the first time because the second time I watched it, I was blown away by it.
Mm.
It's one of those weird film moments where you're like, what the hell did I miss the first time I
I've had
saw it
a
in the
lot of
cinema?
those incidents happen with me with films, yeah, and I think it's always great when a film can do that.
Did I fall asleep or something? No.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of other films you could compare this to. It is a very
I American Psycho.
American, definitely, and that's straight down with Gyllenhaal's performance as
Yeah.
well. I was watching it too. American Psycho is one of my favourite films, and I could definitely see a lot of similarities between his character and Patrick Bateman's from that movie. And also, I think there's a little bit of Taxi Driver in there too.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that he actually based his performance off De Niro
Oh,
from
did he?
Taxi Driver. Yeah, so
Yeah, I can see that, and the sort of lot of those shots where, the slow driving through the city at night and gazing out of the window at people, and I did definitely got a sense of some Taxi Driver vibes there. But I mean, we're talking about him now. Let's just jump straight into Gyllenhaal's performance in this film. Absolutely
amazing. Yeah.
incredible, without a shadow of a doubt. Absolutely incredible, beginning to end. And I was watching it, and I was aware that people have mentioned this before. I think hardly ever blinks in this movie. He has this very distant way of talking to people. He's always like he's not on the same plane of existence as them. He's very detached, very matter of fact, and with his eyes, it's almost like they're bulging all the time, like staring. And he is an immensely creepy dude to talk.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah.
I'm not going to go into huge spoilers here, but he has a guy who he goes on these filming stints with in the night, and the way he talks to him, and the way he talks to his boss at the newsroom, very uneasy. And there are a lot of scenes in this sort of where he's giving them an ultimatum, and he's saying what he wants and his terms and everything like that. And I'm watching this performance and I'm just like, oh my god, like this is probably honestly the best film I've seen Gyllenhaal in. He's always been a great actor. I mean, other
Ooh,
films that
Donnie
come.
Darko was good, but
Yeah, I
that's
can
an old
see.
one for him.
Yeah, Donnie Darko. I thought he was great in Brokeback Mountain as well. Um, I need to see Southpaw. I haven't seen that yet, but I mean, just from that trailer, I mean, what he's willing to go through to like change his body and everything like that. But this
Yeah.
is definitely the best role I think I've seen him in. Um, but yeah, as you said earlier, I could definitely see that American Psycho thing going on with him. I think that Patrick Bateman's slightly more funnier in terms of like because that film's more or less yeah.
Intentionally funnier. I feel like Patrick Bateman's character was written to be funny, whilst like Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this one was like Louis Bloom. I can't remember what his name was in the actual film, but it was made to be creepy.
Yeah, and it definitely
It was
was. I
made
mean,
to make you feel uneasy.
we get those shots where I mean he says like he lives on his own, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying that, but like how he says that he learns everything from the computer, and when he talks to people he can basically tell them their whole history. He's very methodical, he's very cold, he's very calculated, and he's incredibly intelligent, and that's what
Almost
makes.
OCD as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely I can see that. And there's a bit earlier on when he's telling his sort of co-pilot in the car to read him all the routes and everything like that, and when he messes up, it is very tense because you put yourself in that same situation. Because I don't know, I was saying all the time when I was watching this film with this poor guy who's like, I think he says he's straight out of college, he's living on the streets, he's trying to like just get any work he can. I would never ever work for this man,
Oh
Jake
no.
Gyllenhaal. But I mean, it gets to a point in the film where um, he almost can't get away because Jake Gyllenhaal is that threatening towards him.
And I feel like it's also, I mean, I was reading different reviews on this, and they were saying it's a very realistic showing of Los Angeles and the American dream in that sort.
Mm.
The character being low in pay, having to work for a psycho, basically. And you can see it in his eyes that he wants to leave. He wants to be able to just go off and work in a different place where there's less money, but he knows it's a reliable source of income. Or,
Mm.
well, semi-reliable source of income.
Yeah, he never gives
Uh,
him that raise, does he?
no, he doesn't.
But no, and I don't want to get all sort of like artsy fartsy film critic on this, but I think there are definitely a lot of themes running throughout this film with, as you said, like the American dream, and definitely sort of with the whole news angle. It's about like how information is fed to the public, and we definitely see that through Rene Russo's character of Nina Romina, who's
Yeah.
sort of the boss at the newsroom, and you see her behind the scenes. She's controlling what the news reporters, news readers are actually saying, because she's constantly aware of viewership and what news is hot and what will work with the audience they've got. And it does make you wonder, and I'm sure it does go on in like news reports like this, is that if that is actually what happens when we watch the news, how information can be misconstrued and sort of animated and then projected to the audience in a different way. So I think there are definitely a lot of sort of themes running through it like that. But you were talking about, did you say Los Angeles it was set in?
Yeah, it was set in.
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether it was actually set in Los Angeles, but it was Los Angeles.
yeah. Well, the intro. I just want to say how nice it is to see a film with an opening credits. It's very, very rare you get a film like that nowadays that do that. A lot of old films, especially in the 80s, they took their time. They had about a 3 to 5 minute long opening credits, and I mean this one did it beautifully. You get all the night shots. You get the awesome music playing behind it by James Newton Howard. And I love films that do that because it sort of sets the tone, it allows the audience in, and it's just brilliant. I think when I love seeing films with opening credits, and it's always nice when modern films still stick to that a little bit. That was just a thing I noticed. But another character I really, really want to briefly talk about. I know that we talked a little bit before we started recording, but you're not a big fan. Bill Paxton's in this movie. Now, I think the last time I talked about Bill Paxton on this channel was probably the second review on this channel, which was Edge of Tomorrow. And that was another movie where I was watching it, I went in cold, I didn't know anything about it, and Bill Paxton showed up, and I was just like, this is amazing, because I love Bill Paxton in all movies from the 80s, and even like the 90s as well. Twister's one of my favourites, probably with him in. And he's always great to see. He's a great actor. And then when I saw him in this, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know Bill Paxton was in this movie. He still looks exactly the same as he ever does from the 80s. And he doesn't get a huge role. He sort of plays a rival media company that is constantly beating Jake Gyllenhaal to these scenes of crimes, etc. And they have a bit of, well, they have quite a heated rivalry actually, which ends in a rather intense moment, I would say, between them. But we'll get into that with spoilers later on. But I don't know if you have many thoughts on Bill Paxton, because I know you said you was just sort of like, oh yeah.
To be honest, with the characters in this film, there's only one actor, and I'd say maybe Rene Russo, who you need to be concerned with.
Yeah.
Riz Ahmed's character of Rick is there, but you always seem like he is a distant character.
And if I were to give any negative to this film, I know we're going to move into overall thoughts later, but I did think his character was a little underwritten. Throughout the film, basically, he just keeps asking for a rise, and he's always like chickening out of the jobs, and especially towards the end, he does get he gets very. Have you seen Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen? I can't believe I'm referring
no.
to this in the
Why
review.
did you actually wait? Is that the second one?
Yeah, it's the second one.
Is that the really racist one?
With the robots, yeah,
Yeah,
the racist
yeah.
robots.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Actually, no, that's all the Transformers movies. All of them have racist robots in. But that's the one with the incredibly racist robots in, yeah.
Okay.
But there's a character in that called Leo who sort of sits in the back of the car, and he's sort of semi-comic relief. He's always shouting and scared of everything that's going on, and I did sort of get flashbacks of that towards the end of this film when they're in the car together. But then when I think about it, he is sort of just the regular average Joe guy in the film, isn't he? And I think that any normal person would probably act in the same way, especially when, as the film goes on, Jake Gyllenhaal wants him to do more and more extreme things. So
Yes.
I don't know if that's a bad thing. I just think that his character was probably a little underdeveloped compared to some of the other characters in it. And as we said, this isn't a huge cast. As you said, like Jake Gyllenhaal is your main lead actor in it, and then you've probably got 3 to 4 other key supporting characters. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I quite like that. It's a smaller cast. The plot's very simple, but I think it's incredibly effective. And if we want to move into direction now, Dan Gilroy was the director and
Done
the
very
writer.
well. Very well.
And considering this was his directorial debut, absolutely incredible. And I think he's definitely a name to watch now.
Bright future.
Definitely. And I'm looking at other directors as well, like I forgot his name, the one who did Birdman, who's directing The Revenant coming out. I think he's one who could, in I don't know, like 10 years' time, be the next one of the greatest directors.
Yeah,
And considering this, I mean, this is a smaller budget film. It was done on a budget of around 8.5 million.
that's
It made
crazy.
just under 40, so it made a decent profit back. I'd like to see him. I would like to see him do more films like this, more smaller budget films. But I think that he's got the skills to go on and do whatever he wants, really. And he shows that he's definitely a good director with actors as well, because he brought a phenomenal performance out in every character, but especially Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, I think the distributor's Open Road Films, not a big name,
Mm.
but they've done a good job with this film. They haven't really done too many big films in the past. They've done, I think, the Machete series, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Um, a couple of films a little bit earlier on, but I'm looking at the films they're looking to bring out, and it's looking okay. I mean, I'm not sure whether this director, Dan Gilroy, is going to be working with them again pretty soon. I feel like he might move up into the big leagues now.
And
Maybe
very
working
similar
with.
to Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this film.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, this film's. I'm just looking at reviews now. Critical acclaim. There was Oscar buzz. It was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
Can we
Uh,
can we please talk about the snub? Can we
yeah,
please do?
definitely. Yeah,
Because I spent a whole video on my own channel talking about it, and I was just so angry.
yeah. I'm trying to think. If you want to sort of vent a minute, I'll bring up a list of who he was up against at that time. Um,
It was an incredible performance, and like I know that Eddie Redmayne did a good performance in the end and won the actual Oscar. But the people who he was up against with at the time, Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, really. I feel like he did a better job than Steve Carell. I know it's different for a comedic actor to go into something like that, but I feel like this performance, if they brought it into maybe 6 people, then that would have worked better. Bradley Cooper, American Sniper, I'd say he was better than that as well, and maybe even better than Benedict Cumberbatch Imitation Game.
mm.
He definitely deserved a nomination, and I feel like him and the Lego Movie were the two big snubs of the Oscars.
So this would be Best Actor. You say? Yeah, I'm just looking here now. Yeah. Um, as I said, I still need to catch up on many of these films. I haven't seen Foxcatcher or American Sniper yet, or The Theory of Everything actually, but I think the trailer gives an adequate sort of portrayal of Eddie Redmayne's performance in that. Um, see, it's tough. That year, I really wanted Keaton to win. I think part of that is though my bias towards Michael Keaton because he is Batman in my mind still, and I think he's a phenomenal actor, and it was lovely to see him make that comeback. So I was sort of rooting for the underdog in that one, but I did think Cumberbatch was great as well. But as you said, like he transforms in this film,
He
Gyllenhaal.
does. He unrecognizable from other recent films that he's done, and unrecognizable from the film that we reviewed last time, Everest.
Yeah,
Completely different performance. Maybe that's still a little bit of kind of rogueness, maybe left over. Um, but I'd say that was probably Gyllenhaal in person. I mean, if you've seen him in any interviews before, he was on Graham Norton a while back. He's very kind of quiet, conserved character. As soon as you stick him in front of a camera, he becomes Jake Gyllenhaal, this completely different person, slightly, I wouldn't say cocky, but I'd say a little bit more confident,
mm,
a little bit more controlling, does that laugh, which I think he did a couple of times in the film, where it's almost, it's an unnerving laugh, it's just
yeah, yeah.
just
I
to break
know.
the tension, and it really doesn't break the tension.
No, I think I know which bit you're talking about as well. It's and I think there are some similar themes in it towards like American Psycho, which it all talks about how everyone puts on an act in front of everyone. No one's their real self. Everyone's fake and caught up in this world, this social world. Everyone wants to try
Yeah.
and better themselves, everything like that. And it's that part. This isn't spoiling anything. It's when he walks past one of the news anchors and he says like, "Oh, you're wearing that tie again. It must be Friday." And he does that awkward
Yeah,
laugh,
that's
and
that's
it's
the awkward laugh I'm talking about.
yeah, and it's really uncomfortable and really unsettling. But we know that people are like that in workplaces like that. I'm sure they are. But and another thing I just wanted to bring up really quickly about the character, and then we'll sort of
Can
give
we do
our
the
overall
ending?
thoughts, and then
I
go into
want to do the
spoilers.
ending. I want to do
Um,
the ending.
you can wait for the ending. We'll get to that in spoilers. I don't want to mess it up for people. But I mean the character. It depends how you fall on your opinion on Jake Gyllenhaal's character. I mean, on the one hand, he is this immensely creepy. He will do anything for the position he wants, but then you also look at him and he is an incredibly driven guy working his way up from the bottom to the top, and
You
I'm
got to
sure
buy the
that
lottery ticket.
yeah, I'm sure yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people could sort of get behind him in that way. I mean, he is the lead character that we follow, so by the end of the film you are sort of rooting for him almost to get what he wants, but where what the crux of the
You were
film
rooting for
is.
him. You were rooting for him.
A little bit towards the start, where he's like just starting out, trying to make a name for himself and stuff. But what the crux of the film is just how far you will be willing to go to get the position you want,
Yeah.
and is it moral to do so? And all like everything he goes through throughout the film. And I thought that was a really sort of cool theme throughout the story. Completely pays off at the ending, probably the most perfect ending I could think for it. It was sort of a predictable ending. I knew it was going to come, but when you see it play out as it does, it's absolutely immense to watch. So we'll end with our overall thoughts for the spoiler-free section, and then we'll hit the ending. Don't worry about that. We'll get onto that. So if you want to kick off with your overall thoughts, and would you recommend the movie?
Watch the film. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, yeah, and I will completely echo that. I think looking at some of the other nominations from that year, this was probably one of the best films of that year. Now I've
It was the
seen
best
it.
thriller.
Oh, without a doubt, and it's got an absolutely phenomenal performance, lead actor from Jake Gyllenhaal. If you're
Ooh,
a
ooh, actually, Whiplash. Ooh, sorry about that.
that,
I was just thinking, what? Yeah, we'll get.
Whiplash was a great film, but I think if I were to ever watch one again out of the two, it would probably be Nightcrawler. That's not a slight against Whiplash at
I'd
all.
be
I
caught
loved
up in two
Whiplash.
minds about that because I love J.K. Simmons' performance.
Oh, so do I. And if I squint hard enough, then I can pretend I'm watching J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man, just significantly more bald and throwing more like drum chairs around the room and stuff. But no, I loved Whiplash, but maybe again because it's. I always get this with movies. As soon as I come out of them, I still have the hype of them, like days after, and then I have to give them a few more viewings before my sort of not my expectations, but my hype cools down a little bit, and I can sort of take a step back and review them a second time. But one thing that I know for a fact, fantastic performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. If you're a Gyllenhaal fan and haven't seen this movie, as you said, just go and see this movie now. You will not be disappointed. It's an awesome thriller. All of the cast are phenomenal. It's well written, well directed. The action's intense. The performances are great, and I think it's got some really cool themes in there. You might not like the main character all the way through, but that's
No,
not necessarily a bad thing because I know plenty of films where the main character's a complete diabolical despicable bastard, and I still love it. But yeah, would highly recommend, and I think it was probably one of the best films from last year. Now I've seen it, but now we'll move into spoilers. We'll talk about the ending and a couple of our favourite scenes or key scenes that we couldn't talk about in the spoiler free. So I know you've been wanting to talk about the ending, so let's just jump straight into that. So
I saw this film. I'd say now, a long time ago. It came out last year, so about a year ago, to be honest. Maybe a little bit less than a year ago, but I am still unsure on the ending.
unsure in
I'm
a
not
bad way.
No, in a good way.
Okay.
It left me thinking, what just happened?
Yeah.
Still, I've watched it about 3 times, and every single time I have thought to myself, wow, okay, that ending. Not sure what to think of that.
It's
I'm not sure whether that plays to the film better or not, but
Yeah,
I
it's
want to
it's
hear your thoughts on it.
it's a complete Kaiser Soze ending, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it
And
is.
the final shot where he's in the interrogation room and he's come up with this big elaborate story of how he was only doing it to see if there were people were still alive in there, and how he was followed by the guys in the van and etc. As I said, like completely methodical and cold, and the detective's just not buying any of it, and she says like, you want to know what I think, and she basically just says everything that actually happened.
Yeah.
But he gets away with it. I guess they didn't have enough evidence to say otherwise. He gets away with it, and the final scene of the film, I think it's darkly comedic, but it's a very sort of melancholy end. It's where he's now got, oh, I forgot, is it Video Media News? I've completely
Yeah.
forgot what it is, the name of his company,
Wait a
but
sec, let me find out.
he's got three vans now. He's got an entire team at his disposal, and he says something like, I think one of the final scenes is, "I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself." And
And
then,
that's scary.
yeah, it's the perfect ending. You sort of laugh at it, but it's an uneasy laugh because I just these poor fresh out of college kids that have now joined his production team. God knows what's going to happen to them in the future, and they sort of drive off into the night, into the unknown, pretty much like what their fates are at the hands of Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great ending as well. And I was saying before we started recording, if I were to try and think of any bad things about this film, I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I thought that Rene Russo's character towards the end had a pretty drastic turnaround. Throughout most of the film, he basically just says like, "Look, I want a relationship with you. We'll keep it completely professional. We're working the same hours, but I essentially want you to sleep with me and be in a relationship with me." As I
Yeah.
said, like he speaks in a very disconnected way. And she says that she basically just went on this date just to humour him from a completely professional standpoint. And then by the end of the film, it's sort of implied that they're together. She's slowly become corrupted, I think, by
By
him.
him.
But then when I think about it, I think the seeds of that were already planted within her, because you see it from the start. She is a very sort of like hard-headed, driven woman, um, and Gyllenhaal shares those same qualities. Um, so when you get to the end, and the ending shot where it's the camera's behind them and they're both looking at the news screen, and I think they turn to each other and they sort of like marvel at the creation they've just made. It really reminded me of the ending of Fight Club, where Edward Norton
Yeah.
and Helena Bonham Carter sort of they stare out. This is a spoiler for the end of Film Club. The end of Fight Club, by the way. They're sort of standing next to each other. They're surveying the city as it blows up, and sort of she's come around to his way of thinking, and they basically fall in love, or they have that relationship at the end. It was sort of a similar ending to that, I thought, but I did think that her descent into that was a bit drastic, and that's probably my only negative,
Yeah.
really.
I'd have to say that the whole the interrogation scene when he looks at the camera, I had
Yes,
flashbacks to the original Psycho.
yes,
As in,
I was going to bring that up too. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah,
the whole he wouldn't even harm a
Her-
fly.
yeah,
And if he'd have said that line, then I would have been convinced that the two films were kind of like a recreation,
yeah,
but
definitely.
without the murdering. And I feel like what makes Jake Gyllenhaal's character even creepier is the fact that he doesn't directly kill anyone.
No, but you know what? It's almost more creepy that he doesn't, because it's
You
almost
wouldn't
like,
put it past him to like actually end someone's life.
yeah,
But it's
like that the intention's there, and I'm a bit unclear of sort of the time frame that this film takes place. I don't know whether it's over the course of a year, a few years, or just a couple of months from when he starts from the bottom and works his way to the top. Um, but that the first time he met this guy, when he's interviewing him in that diner, that the eventuality that it ends up being like is exactly what he had in his mind. And he says something at the end when his co-pilot, his cameraman's lying dying on the floor. He says something like, "I knew that you weren't enthusiastic." This isn't exactly what he says, but he says something like, I knew your heart wasn't in this project from the off, and I can't afford to have that as part of my company, like any weak links in my company." And like he just lies dying, he just like takes the camera out of like his cold dying hands, and then he just leaves. and it's like wow, like I knew it was coming. Like
It's a cool car chase beforehand as well.
oh yeah, and I was gonna
Yeah.
say like the cinematography, Robert Elswit. I knew I recognised his name. We talked about him in when I did the Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. He's done the two most recent Mission Impossible films. He's done a couple of Bond films, I believe. So he's sort of well to do with like the action genre. He knows how to frame it, and the car chase at the end of that is fresh out of that. And he's also done The Town as well, which we've reviewed on the channel. That has some great shots of car chases in that as well. So at first I was thinking, oh, the action is going to sort of detract from it because it's not really an action-based movie, is it? It's a lot more sort of like
No.
a personal character study on this character of Jake Gyllenhaal. But I do think that the ending builds to that and warrants that, and I do think that like the bit where they're parked up outside and they're waiting for the police to arrive, it's
I thought
really
that was so
tense.
intense, so
Real,
intense.
I hate using this because I think it's a really cliched way of saying it, but I was genuinely on the edge of my seat waiting for that to happen because, as I said, I went into this film cold. I didn't exactly know how it was going to go down, but I knew that sadly his cameraman was going to die at the end.
Would you say
Um,
it's predictable then?
um, I think it was predictable that his cameraman was going to die. Um, Part of me thought that Gyllenhaal would do it himself, so that was a little bit of a shock when the guy gets out the wreckage and
Yeah.
shoots at him. Um, because there was that probably the most intense scene for me is the bit where you know what's his name, Rick is saying, look, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It's when it's building up to the end. He says this is too much now. I either want to be paid more or I want to walk. And Gyllenhaal full on blackmails and threatens him. He says, look, if you leave now before the critical moment, I'm gonna have to hurt you, and I'm not just saying that, I will have to physically
Yeah.
hurt you. And he's saying it in that really, it's almost calm. It's a calm way of saying it. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't shout, he doesn't become
In
animated.
fact, there is only one point in the entire film where he loses it, and that's when he smashes the mirror.
Yeah, and that's out of frustration at his own, not stupidity, but he knows that that was a setback in his plan.
Yeah, and in fact, I know that in that scene, he smashed the mirror so hard that he cut his hand or broke his hand or something like that.
I was going to say that seemed like a shot where he did actually do that. When I was watching it, I thought, and it was an incredible shot as well. The
Oh yeah.
framing and everything in that shot was beautiful. But I guess we can talk about favorite scenes now. If we haven't talked about them already, do you have a particular favorite scene that you can remember from this film?
Can you go first? Whilst I just come up with one for a second.
Oh, can my favorite moment just be the entire film?
Go for it.
I'm trying to think of a it would probably be. It depends which way you'd look at it. It's either got to be a set piece or it's got to be like a particular character moment. I think character moment for me would be the bit where he says to Rick like I'm gonna have to hurt you because I knew it was building to that, but that sort of
Yeah.
set the omen of dread which sort of like played out throughout the rest of the film. Favorite set piece has to be the ending.
Yeah, the car chase scene and everything.
Perfect setup in terms of creating suspense and tension with the viewer, um, and sort of Rick and how he's tentative to get out of the car, and how it keeps cutting between the two cameras as well because Jake Gyllenhaal wants a two-angle setup for the shootout at the end. He's got it all played out. He's almost like this really demented director. Like he knows exactly how his vision wants to be, which lens to use, which framing to use, and everything like that. And then you're sort of waiting for the police to get there, and Gyllenhaal's anticipating it as well, and how that all plays out is absolutely phenomenal. And like going back really quickly to that bit where he's in the interrogation room, the bit like Psycho, I love the bit where he says, "Oh, I know you're all watching me on that camera up there," and he goes like wide angle, and it's like even then he's still in his professional
Yeah.
media mode. I thought, oh, it's chill. His performance is absolutely chilling in this film. Absolutely, completely snubbed at the Oscars after seeing this film.
Yeah, that's my favourite scene, the car chase at the end and the inevitable ending of the film.
Yeah.
I mean, first time I watched it, I was shocked. Second time I watched it, I was shocked. Third time I watched it, I was shocked. So, yeah, it's one of those. I'd say that one of the good points for this film is it is rewatchable. I mean, you said you would
Totally.
watch it over Whiplash again. I would probably tie those. I'd probably watch both of them again if I could. But I've got it on DVD now, and I will probably watch it again, maybe in a half year's time when I've thought, you know what, I haven't watched that in a long time.
Yeah.
I'll watch Nightcrawler again.
And before I close out here, because I always tend to do this, I always like end the review and go like, "Oh, god damn it, I forgot to talk about something." The sort of farewell scene to Bill Paxton, who's in an accident, and as he's sort of being like towed away by the ambulance, and they've got him on the gurney, Jake Gyllenhaal's right there with the camera in his face.
Stood over him, and he knows, whilst he's on the bed, he knows that he is lost, and
Yeah.
he then, I feel like his character realizes what he is actually doing by filming these people, and I feel like that is something about Jake Gyllenhaal's character. He has no empathy at all.
Yeah.
Absolute zero.
There's
Especially when, like, the scene where he's, like, on the hills and he drags out the bodies into a
Yeah.
better shot position. Oh, it's brutal.
tampering with the
absolutely
crime
brutal.
scene, everything like that. But that also did make me question: wouldn't they sort of like do fingerprints and analysis and everything, and see that he had an involvement with it?
Then he could just say, I was trying to revive the body.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing about it. His character's really scary. But that bit with Bill Paxton when he's getting carried away, no dialogue between the two of them, just the exchanges of glances. Gyllenhaal's just looking through the camera. I don't even think he looks at with his actual eyes, does he? I think his only eye is through the camera. Because they had that rivalry all the way throughout the film. When Paxton sees that, you know, he's sort of making a name for himself now, he's getting a bit more notoriety, he tries to offer him a job. Gyllenhaal just shuts him down immediately, and then straight after that, that happens. And
Yeah.
I know that he didn't have anything to do with it, but when I was watching that scene, I kept thinking, did Gyllenhaal somehow like tamper with the car? Or did he predict that this would happen and that's why they went there?
You never know.
You don't know because, and I like that about it. I don't think it is. I think it is just meant to be interpreted as an accident, but it does make you wonder because as soon as that happens, you know, he goes from strength to
He's
strength
the
in his
first one on
career.
the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love stuff like that. I like how it throws the audience and makes you question even after you've seen it. I think this. So we'll go into our ending now. We'll do a brief sum up again. I think this is definitely one you should check out. I think it definitely will merit multiple viewings. As soon as this film ended, I just thought I've got to see this film again because I think I could definitely pick up on a few more bits. I think Gyllenhaal's performance is definitely his best I've ever seen him in. And I think with the multiple viewings, you'll definitely sort of pick up on a few more nuances with his performances, bits you missed the first time. I'm really, really glad you touched on that whole thing in the interrogation room being
Yeah.
like Psycho, because I immediately thought of that as well. Great support cast as well. Really nice, self-contained little story, but one with a lot of themes in it and really, really sort of disturbing edge to it, which I kind of liked. So it's definitely a buy from me, and I would suggest everyone see it if you haven't got round to it.
Watch it.
Yeah. But yeah, so please rate, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know. Have you seen Nightcrawler? Haven't you seen it? Let us know. If you haven't seen it, just shut off the review and, well, we're at the end of the review now, so
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, then that's your fault. But you can find us on Facebook. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. We're on Twitter at cinema_savvy. And we're also on letterbox.com/cinema_savvy as well. Sort of keep up to date with all the films that we've done. It's like basically a website full of lists, and you can see everything we've reviewed on there in a nice, easy to view manner. I believe our main show for next week will be a review on Guillermo del Toro's new horror film Crimson Peak. Cautiously optimistic with that one. I think that Guillermo del Toro is a great visionary director, and it's always good when he tackles horror. So he's moved from a gigantic CGI monster and robot movie into a horror one. So I'm looking forward to that. I've seen a couple of trailers, looks visually stunning.
Don't forget, it's a period drama as well. So.
And a period drama, and Loki's in there as well. So yeah, that will be our review on. That should be going up Monday, I think. So look out for that. And until then, thank you very much for listening.